Anyway, the menu. For those of you that haven't seen it, I'll once again let you know the highest of spoiler alerts. This movie relies heavily, I believe, on unexpected moments and subversion of audience expectation that it does very well. So this is going to be a comprehensive review where I will need to talk about everything that happens in order to give this, review a fully comprehensive kind of idea. You know what I mean? So just, if you really want to see it, I suggest maybe you rejoin us in like an hour 15. How could it not be? Wow, Poutier. Okay. Anyway, let us move on. So, for those of you that haven't seen it and remained, it is a 2022, very recent, American black comedy horror film. I'm not sure about the comedy part, but technically, they are putting themselves in that genre. It was directed by Mark Mylod, who I haven't seen or heard from before. He's done some television series, Succession and Shameless. He's a British playwright and television writer. It was written by Seth Rice and Will Tracy, and it was based on an original story created by Tracy. It features an ensemble cast that includes Ralph Fiennes. How the fuck do you pronounce Voldemort actor's name? Ralph Fiennes? Fiennes? I've only ever seen it written down. I haven't actually heard anybody saying that. Fiennes? Fiennes? I don't know. Anyway, as a celebrity chef with Hong Chow playing his assistant and Anya Taylor-Joy, Nicholas Hoult, Janet McTeer, Reed Birney, Judith Light, and John Leguizamo playing diners who attend his exclusive restaurant. A quick rundown of what this movie is about. Essentially, there's this super exclusive restaurant that you have to get a boat to go to because it's on an island off the coast, somewhere off the east coast, I believe, of the United States. And this is about a fine dining degustation experience by one of the greatest chefs in the world. And it's essentially a bunch of like really rich people and like foodies and like food critics, and all of these people enjoying this menu. But it slowly turns kind of weird. There's this tension, and it very quickly turns into survival horror, with the chef being actually the main villain of the story. It had its world premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival on September 10th, 2022, and it was released in the United States on November 18, 2022. It grossed $78 million worldwide on a budget of $30 million, so very successful, and received very positive reviews from critics. But alright, let us move to my analysis, okay? Far be it from me to just quote stats and other people's opinions. I think you guys know that I don't really have the same opinions as other critics very often. Especially with like films like Marvel and stuff like that. Anyway, straight off the bat, the movie does very well in framing what it's trying to sort of portray. Sort of what I've tried to do in my very limited capacity by dressing myself as a fine dining guest. It right, like in the titles, usually you would see like these studios present the menu. This time it said invites you to experience the menu. So its approach is sort of like very fancy, relating to like the fine dining experience. I think it does that. I think it does that very well. Titles do play a role in this game. The entire film is follows the menu, so there are different parts of the movie, sort of like different chapters, and they are separated by the name of the course. So there's like the amuse-bouche at the beginning. There is the the starter, the first course, second course, third course, fourth course, and it goes on and on. The final course is actually the ending of the movie. So that sort of separation works well with both the titles at the beginning and at the end, and throughout the entire movie. It is sort of like following a menu and experiencing dining out at a fine dining restaurant. That is what I believe the filmmakers were going for, and I think that for the most part they actually did achieve that. I think it broke apart a little bit during the second half, but we will get there. Another thing that the movie does well is very good like characterization and character framing. you very quickly, through sort of like innocent conversations that don't feel forced or don't feel exposition heavy, you learn very quickly where to place each of the characters that you see on the screen right now. The three to the right are like finance bros, you know, economics, some economic consultants. Then you have like superstars there. I'm going from the right, by the way. You have the two superstars, like a director, a famous actor. Then you have like a really pretentious foodie, you know, somebody who enjoys food a lot and can talk about it for hours. Next to him is his date. We'll talk about later. Then further to the left are actually famous food critics, and then further on to the left are like some old money couple. And all of this you can learn within the first 5 minutes of the movie. You immediately know who these people sort of like, where they sort of, you know, where would you place them, if you know what I mean. I'm probably not describing it just right, but what I mean to say is that you know sort of what kind of people they are based on very quick conversations. And another thing that the movie does very well, very nice editing. You have a conversation, you have a piece of dialogue that's going on around one table, and then it quickly edits to another table where there is another dialogue, and it's very contained. It's not exposition heavy or anything, but it still reveals a lot about the characters, about their dynamics, and sort of furthers the intrigue of what this movie is actually about. You know, you do actually sort of like flow into the movie very naturally, and with these like slow dialogue tasting bits that are full of flavor, you could say. It does very well to like keep the writing very similar to like an experience that you would have at a fine dining restaurant. I have been in many fine dining restaurants myself, like degustation menus and all of that, like these kind of fancy restaurants. We do like them with my family. I go only with my family, by the way. I could not afford that by myself. But yeah, my mom is really big into this sort of thing, and I really enjoy obviously experiencing the food as well and all of that. But so yeah, I had some kind of perspective on this movie straight off the bat, because it is a world that I'm sort of interested in. And even before seeing this movie, I kind of felt this strange kind of like almost like mystery about this whole fine dining experience, because you have the foods that you have. And I mean, we have the Food Pics channel on our Discord, right? And I very often post the fine dining foods that I have in these fine dining restaurants, and what you mostly tell me, like, oh, what is this, like, this doesn't look like food, this is like too like food for ants and stuff like that. It's not just that it's small amounts of food, it's also that very often they are kind of strange. You know, there's like a foam, some kind of a snow, different kind of weird kind of textures, but it always provides some kind of very unusual taste that I enjoy. But there is this mystery, because I am not like a foodie or food critic. I don't understand food at all. I mean, you guys know what I eat on a regular basis. But I can tell that, you know, these flavors are something that I haven't tasted before, or something very unusual and very strange. And that's the sort of mystery that I really felt. And again, maybe I'm just projecting. I kind of felt like the writer was kind of like trying to put it there, because there is some kind of like mysterious tension going on throughout the entirety of the first half, where some stuff is like a little weird, you know, like you can't really place it. But there are moments, like for example, when the guests arrive on the island, they are shown around the island, and at first it's fine, you know, like the maitre d', you would call them, I guess, is showing them around the island, showing them the fisherman that is pulling out their scallops from the sea. And you know, my reaction to that was like, yeah, that's pretty fucking cool. You know, they're showing the gathering of the food that they're about to eat. It's pretty cool. But then they're like shown where the staff lives. You know, this very small house with like 15 beds right next to each other. And I was like, well, that's kind of strange. Like, that doesn't usually happen, that you would be shown where the staff lives. But it's a tiny thing, you know. It's like a little thought that just like comes across your mind, and but it makes you start to feel a certain way, you know. It's somewhat unusual. It's an unusual flavor of a movie, of writing. Not writing per se. It's not the writing style. The writing style isn't. It's very good. It's written very well, but it's not unusual in any way. It's just what happens in the movie. Like the actual story. That's the unusual part. The story is what you're flavoring or tasting, I guess. So immediate focus, like straight from the beginning of the movie, and the most scenes wise or most shot wise was on this couple, young couple, of this very like pretentious foodie that's always like, oh, you know, like you can't smoke, telling to his girlfriend, what I assume was his girlfriend. You can't smoke, you know, we're all about to taste all these wonderful things, and this will kill your palate, and like really lecturing her and everything. And she, on the other hand, is like very casual, and she's like, oh, okay. And she, you know, she's very clearly very casual about the food, and doesn't really care. And her overall demeanor is sort of like just like a regular, you know, person that's not into food like at all, and not really caring what they eat that much. Where, you know, you start to wonder like, why exactly are they together, because they're such like diametrically like such different people, you know, such different character dynamics and everything. But that is luckily explained at the beginning of the movie, towards the end of the movie, or the second half. I even remarked here, by the way, that I'm annoyed with a character that I'm supposed to be annoyed with within the first 5 minutes, which is, I think, like a good way in like recognizing good writing, when like you feel like the movie is trying to make you feel a certain way, and you feel that way. That, in my opinion, immediately is good. You know, like when I'm annoyed with movies when I'm not supposed to be annoyed, then that's poor. But obviously here he was immediately like very clearly shown to be a pretentious person. So yeah, straight off the bat, very good. Props to the actor. Oh yeah, of course. Like that's. I'm very sorry to like. I almost never mention. I try to. Okay, I really try to. But as a writer myself, I really focus heavily on the writing. But yes, props to the actor as well. The actor is very good. Let me pull up. Motherfucker! Why the fuck? Nicholas Hoult. Yeah, Nicholas Hoult. Very good. Very good acting. That really sold it as well. So yes, thank you, Gautier. You're right. Oh yeah, I already talked about the titles, how like the movie is separated into these courses. That I really enjoyed that, but it's also the visual identity of the movie that I really like, because there's always like, whenever there is a title of like, okay, first course, second course, there is this like logo of the restaurant, and it's this like restaurant font, and even the music is very often like sort of music that you would feel is like in a restaurant lobby. Not really, you know, you don't really have music in fine dining restaurants, but in like the lobby, or sort of like restaurant music. I don't know how to properly like describe it, but it's music that belongs in like a restaurant lobby, you know? Hey, and Nightmare's here. Welcome. How are you doing, Nightmare? What do you say to my outfit? Heretic 2? No, I'm not actually. But I understand why you would think that. No, I'm reviewing a movie about a fine dining restaurant, so I decided to dress as a fine dining guest. Okay, I'm thinking about like, you know, theming my outfits to my reviews, or to the movies that I'm reviewing, rather. That's that's a thing that I just decided to do today. I don't know why. I'm doing all right. Just have a bit of cold. I'm sorry to hear that. But hey, you have a weekend ahead of you to just, you know, stay at home and chill. I know that you will enjoy that. You don't have to go anywhere. That's really nice, actually. Thank you, Nightmare. I appreciate that. He decided to dress quite pretentiously to match that of fine diners. Indeed, Gautier, thank you. I don't know if all fine diners are pretentious, because I don't believe that I myself am pretentious, and I do sometimes fine dine. Can you use that as a verb? I don't know, I just did. But yeah, I do imagine that I appear a lot more pretentious in these clothes, and honestly, I think it like matches the movie a little bit. The movie itself is not really pretentious, but most of the characters are, so you know. But yeah, I try not to be pretentious. It's hard to do though with this scarf and blazer, dude. I stand by my words. Okay, dude. Okay. Mm. Also, going back to the writing, um, further on, like from like characterizations of characters separately, there are like different character dynamics that are sort of developed. This is the amuse bouche, by the way. That are developed at every table. So like after we're done, sort of like placing the characters in our heads, there is like a dynamic that starts to build at every table. You see like where the conflicts are, power dynamics, and all of these things. Now, I have to say, like during my research, I came across like some critics saying that the characters like are kind of shallow. What was the word exactly? Or what did they write? Right. While its social commentary relies on basic ingredients, the menu serves a black comedy with plenty of flavor. That's only one quote that I found. But others said also that garters are kind of basic, or that the social commentary is kind of basic. I agree with like social commentary being somewhat basic, I suppose, although I'm not sure that that's the main purpose. It doesn't matter, we'll get there later. But when it comes to the characters, yes, they are not like very, deep characters by any means, but I feel like these are the kind of characters that I would really, really meet in a restaurant like this. And I really believed all of them. They're all believable characters, real characters, and that to me matters a lot more than if they're like super deep, because it's not about like particular it's not about like the particular depths of the characters that this movie is about. It's more about the dynamics, and about food as an art, and about survival horror realistically. um so yeah, I'm not, I don't mind that as well. The talking about food, yeah, the obsession with food, and almost like fanatical obsession with food, is a big deal in this movie. It talks about it from the point of view of the chef, that like one of our main characters, played by Nicholas Hoult, Tyler, is eager to impress throughout the whole movie by like trying to like guess what's in the food and stuff, and he's like really annoyed by it, which is kind of funny. But it's also like there are the food critics, and there's the food, like so there's the food critics, there's the chef, there is Tyler, who like talks about, oh, can you feel the hint of bergamot and shit like that. And then you have like on the other side, you have like the finance bros that just like are completely without any culture, and are just laughing about how this whole dinner is paid for by one of their clients, even though it's not a client dinner, and blah blah blah. And they're laughing about it, like classic kind of like finance bros behavior. And there's a delicious looking cheeseburger. Hello, Spud. That is actually a seared lamb chop that's pierced with scissors, as I think the third or fourth course of the movie. But welcome. There is a delicious looking cheeseburger actually in the movie, which... Have you seen, Spud? Are you the first one here that has actually seen the movie? I would love that. I have, yeah. Fantastic, Spud. Then I hope that you have some, that we can have some discussions about it, because It's definitely a movie worth discussing. Definitely a movie worth discussing. Also, I'm dressed as a fine diner. The whole story. Okay. Anyway, I wanted to match the vibe of the film. Anyway, so yes, further on, it's not just about like blind fanaticism about food. It's like it's the spectrum. They really do explore like both blind fanaticism about food versus indifference to food, and there is some kind of like absolute acceptance of everything that's put in front of you on the plate versus like a relentless critique of everything that's put in front of you to look smart and all of that. I think that Cotier, you will enjoy this movie if you watch it for... I think you will love to hate the characters. They are very well portrayed in this kind of classic pretentious, this kind of classic pretentiousness is everywhere there. And whether it be the finance bros that are like, oh, look at me, I'm such a fucking cool guy, like somebody, like, for example, there's a sample conversation, right? One finance bro asks to another, like, hey, how's Melissa or whatever, their wife? And he's like, I don't want to talk about it. And he's like, oh, come on. And he's like, it fucking sucks, like, I texted this girl and blah, blah, blah. She's fucking angry and stuff. But whatever. What does it matter? Like, what's the only thing that matters? And they're all money, and this kind of, not really pretentiousness, but shallowness. And then you have, like, the food critics, like, always having to critique some shit on their plate. And then, like, talking about, oh, this is so 2021 or whatever. And then there is the blind, foodie, pretentious guy who's like, oh, this is like symphony on my tongue, stuff like that. I imagine that when you watch it, you will cringe, but you will cringe for the right reasons, It's not like when you're watching a shitty movie and you cringe like, oh, this is fucking horrendous. But you will, because you are supposed to cringe to these people, to these characters. It is part of the plot. And I think if you're open to that, then I think you will definitely enjoy it. Okay, with the outfit decision, I'm quite excited for when you'll be reviewing Wednesday. Oh shit, you're right. I have to review Wednesday. Fuck, what will I do for that? Well, I have plenty of black clothes, but I don't know. I don't know what I will do. I'll figure something out. Okay? That's actually a good point, Nightmare. You're right. I can appreciate that. Agreed. I also love that show, and I'm glad he's gonna check it out. Oh yeah, with the Wednesday. Yeah. Yeah, that's going to take a while. It's again 8 hours of content that I have to get through and write notes about before I make that review. So that's gonna be something. Oh, what wouldn't I do for these streams, guys? Oh, come on, you can't only do black clothes. That's so underwhelming. Yeah, I know, Nightmare. I know. That's what I'm saying, because I usually wear black clothes. But I don't know what to do. I'll figure something out, okay? What do you think of some of the acting in the film, especially the moments between Anna Taylor-Joy and Ralph Fiennes? So again, Fiennes, how do you pronounce that? Fiennes? I know the actor, but I've only ever seen it written down. Acting, sure. Let's talk about acting. You could always do what you did with Chernobyl, split it between 2 episodes. True. Did I do that with Chernobyl? Didn't I do that with Love, Death and Robots? I could split it. We will see. Would want to call for a t-shirt to spruce up my wardrobe this summer, and it's still new and unused. Oh, wait. Sorry, I didn't pay attention to that. Would want to call for a t-shirt to spruce up my wardrobe this summer, and it's still new and unused. Yeah, I completely get that. That's, yeah. I think it's pronounced fines. Oh, fines. Interesting. Fines. Huh, okay. Oh yeah, definitely should. Anyway, yeah, acting. So, we already talked about the acting of the pretentious jerk, Tyler. Very well done. Very well done acting, of course. Ralph Fiennes it's Ralph Fiennes, dude. Like, he will nail it. Always. Anya Taylor-Joy, I haven't seen that much of her work. But she played the role very well, but then again, when we were like really, critiquing, I guess, it's not that tough of a role to portray, I feel. There was good power dynamic between Ralph Fiennes and Anya Taylor-Joy's character, Erin. who was going by Margot, by the way, for those of you that are confused. Where, you know, there was this kind of like, she's sort of like this casual, you know, woman that's not really into this sort of like pretentious crap, whilst Ralph Fiennes is obviously this big auteur, this big artiste of food, where and you know, so there is this clash between them, and the clash works quite well, but it's mostly driven by Ralph Fiennes, and I mean, we already know he's going to be very good. Akil said that we are going to need a fifth for Valo tonight. Oh yes, Spud, can you join us for Valo tonight? Otherwise you will doom us to play with a rando. So yeah, I mean, other than that, like, Anya Taylor-Joy played it very well. But again, I don't think that she had a particularly challenging character to play. So it's not something that I, like, remarked on in my notes. What do you think? What do you think, Spud? I cannot, I'm working? Ah, a shame indeed. So the first half of the movie, I might as well talk about like the difference between the halves for me, okay? First half of the movie, there is this incremental tension rising with every single course. The course that you're seeing on your screen right now is, I believe, the fourth course or the third course, where they get, I think this is the third course, where they get like tacos with some like very fancy sauces or whatever. And the thing is that on these tortillas, or tortillas with whatever, with some sauces, right? On these tortillas, they get like memories from like their lives that is sort of like, you know, like embarrassing for them, which sort of cranks up the creepy factor about it, because they were told at the beginning, for example, that they weren't supposed to take pictures of the photo, but the big foodie, the huge, you know, fangirl of the chef, Tyler, he was taking pictures of all the food, and he got tortillas where they were like, you know, the photos of him taking pictures of the food were lasered into them. This lady, this old money lady, got pictures of her husband cheating on her, and the big finance bros got essentially copies of their of like their fraudulent accounts, of their like double booking standards on their tacos or tortillas, sorry. So this, you know, immediately some people were freaked out, but they were like really told that, you know, settle down and everything, and it worked because it's like a fine dining experience. You know, everybody's supposed to hold some kind of decorum. So they were, you know, even though they were like finance bros and like, you know, angry about it, and they did make a scene, they weren't. They were like hushed down because of like the overall atmosphere of the room, which is again something that works very well throughout the movie, not only in the first half, where even when shit is about to go down, people are still, you know, sort of sitting in their tables and just trying to keep some decorum, because the atmosphere is so, like the atmosphere that's created in these restaurants is so like, you know, like you should remain calm, always like keep decorum and know, you know, follow your etiquette and all of that. Which is true, and not only that, psychology taught us, there were like many experiments. I forget what was... Listen, I didn't study psychology for a very long time, but there is this particular study where they put a participant in the study into a room, and then they put smoke into that room, and the participant in the study was surrounded by like actors who like looked at the smoke but didn't do anything. And the participant, despite believing that there was a fire right outside the door of the room, they did not move, because nobody else moved, nobody else freaked out, and everybody remained calm, so they also remained calm. It's very much, you know, this kind of group psychology that is very well portrayed in this movie, I believe. I thought the moments between her and Fiennes were well executed, especially the moment between them in his office, or when she betrayed his trust. You can see the look of hurt on his face, but obviously he knew he was testing her. I wasn't overwhelmed by the film, but I thought character interactions were really well captured. Yes, I believe that as well. I kind of talked about it at the beginning before you arrived, I guess, but where like I think the best example of that were the initial character dynamics between the different tables, like before the first course. You know, you would have the very quick conversations between the characters, which would explore both the characters and then the power dynamics and the different character dynamics at each table that was really quickly shifting around. That's a really good piece of writing that really got us, you know, situated with these people that we were going to spend the rest of the movie with. When it comes to like Ralph Fiennes, like finding out that she tried to call for help, that Margot or Erin rather tried to call for help, it felt it was good, but for me, like it didn't feel like something I haven't seen before, something extra original. It was just well executed. I was more like I was more, you know, appreciating how they managed to capture the restaurant and the different characters all together. Because a dialogue between two people, even in that sort of situation, I've seen done millions of times before. But yeah, it was well executed. Alright, well, I warn you guys of spoilers. So if you haven't left and want to watch the movie, I'm sorry, but this is on you. Second half of the movie is when shit starts to go down. Now, what I believed when I started watching this movie, I believed that the tensions would be rising towards the end, and at the end there would be a reveal, and then it would turn into like an actual proper survival horror. But no, the movie decided, let's do that now. I was halfway through the movie when the fourth course arrived. It was called The Mess. Essentially how it was introduced, and then, again, exceptionally well done scene. I think this is the best scene of the movie, by the way. The chef would come in front of the people, and again, like he has been doing before, would introduce the course and introduce his sous chef, who was a guy that always wanted to be like this great chef. Chef Slovak, by the way, that's his name, right? And like Chef Slovak said, like, okay, so this guy studied here, did that, and gave us his whole backstory. And then he said, but like he's a good chef, but he will never be great. You know, like he will never achieve like what I achieved, essentially. And that is something that like is destroying him. And then they draped the kitchen, because the kitchen was right next to the guest. They draped like a little, you know, thing, like separator between them, and then the sous chef proceeded to blow his brains out. It was extremely unexpected, for me at least. I really did not expect that at all, and the shit just went down. He actually killed himself in front of everybody, and it was very interesting, especially how they captured the reactions of the people. Tyler, who was so like adamant in like trying to prove himself to the chef and to like everybody around how he's like a great foodie, he was just focusing on the food and nothing else. The food critics, who again were their own kind of brand of pretentious, wanting to like not be blindsided by something, if you know what I mean, right? So like what pretentious people very often do is they don't want to seem surprised, because then they would feel like they're not the know-it-alls, you know, they're not in on the joke or whatever. So like when they saw it, they gasped, but then they like try to play it off like, oh, whoa, interesting theatrics or blah blah blah. So because lots of the room believed that these were actual theatrics, it was only the finance bros that actually freaked out, and Erin. And the course just continued. But now there was that, you know, shit actually did go down, and from then on, it sort of went like into an actual survival horror. One of the later course, or the course that went right after, was you know, essentially the staff hunting the guests around the island. So you know, you can see that it sort of like went from 0 to 100 real quick, around the halfway line. The old couple trying to leave, and the old couple, or the old man, said that he wants to, you know, call someone. He was asked which hand he will use to call someone, and then they proceeded to snap his finger off. which was even before the course. One of the finance bros just couldn't take it, so he took a chair and tried to smash the window, upon which, realizing that's a bulletproof window and that nothing will come of it, they sat back down. But the tension was already like risen up to a whole another level. So when the other where the guests were told to go outside, and then they were hunted by the kitchen staff, who didn't kill them, by the way, just caught them and brought them back to the restaurant, and then gave them tea. It really like went down to sort of chaos. It didn't feel like it was completely like out of nowhere. The tension was there, it was rising, and the guests, knowing that they are trapped on an island in an inescapable restaurant, they did sort of say like, hey, can we rush them and stuff, but then they realized that no, that's not going to be possible, because there was more cooks than guests, and all of them were well built and also much better with knives and other weapons than the guests would be. But from then on, it was essentially like sort of like a hostage survival horror situation, which, to be honest, like thinking about it, like when I was thinking about it towards the end of the movie, I was a little bit disappointed with that, because I thought that they could like handle that tension building a lot better. Like they could run with it towards the end of the movie, and then shit would go down. So yeah, like I wasn't sure about it that much. I do really enjoy that winner got a prize dessert. Oh yeah, that was good. That was good. We won't have levity in the situation. That is true. Yes. So when they were being hunted, the guests, the one that got found out last was given like an extra dessert as like as like a reward, essentially, for being found last. So yes, there were these moments that like eased the tension a little bit, which is very interestingly done, and almost always through food. So whatever food was being done at any point in the movie, even if you know there's a guy bleeding from his hand and people like being scared and shaken, every time a new food is introduced, there is actually a cut and like in the movie, and a proper introduction of a meal like you would see in cooking shows, you know, like with black background and just like the food there, and it was always introduced with like a title and like what it's made from, like it would be in a menu, because the movie it sort of like is reminding you that the movie that you're watching is still a menu. But I believe it's less of a menu now than it was at the beginning, because it did turn into a little bit of a chaos. There were people running around. Aaron did break into the house of the chef, for example, seeing some of his pictures, how he started as a hamburger cook, or burger cook, sorry, and trying to call for help on the radio. You know, so there was like it wasn't just about the restaurant anymore. It was more like a survival horror thing. Yeah, so literally, like, my first thoughts of like what I just said were, the smooth transition into survival horror works well, but now that most people are aware of their imminent danger, it's somewhat lost a big part of the tension and underlying creeping feeling that I loved so much in the first half. It feels to me that they've done it too early, not even halfway through, and people are already trying to break the windows. So yeah, like, it wasn't bad. Like it did manage to keep telling the story in a very interesting way. It was just nowhere near as interesting as in the first half. And me personally, I think enjoy for that first half of the movie, and it really was the story of two halves, realistically, if that first half vibe continued on forwards. Because then it became a little bit more shallow, not shallow, but a little bit more pedestrian, a little bit more average, a little bit more regular than it was at the beginning. There was still like some very interesting thoughts and very interesting like story, plot lines and shocking things. Not that shocking anymore, but there were still surprises. It was still well written. The story still made sense, but it just wasn't this kind of like there wasn't much mystery behind it anymore, you know, because and I think like that's the point that I'm trying to make. Like once the people were absolutely certain that they are about to die on that island, like it kind of, you know, like it kind of lost some of the tension, some of the mystery. Then I also learned in one of the chef's monologues, as he was talking about the different foods, that he grew up in Bratislava, so he's Slovak, and yeah, which would completely explain why he was a maniac. Anyway, continuing on. That's a joke, by the way. Slovaks are our brothers, Czechs. Now, if you remember, at the beginning of the movie, I remarked on the fact that I did not know why Margot, or Erin, as we've come to know her in the second half, would be with somebody like Tyler. I was very surprised by that because they seem to be like completely different characters. She was very casual about food and everything. She seemed like a nice, regular, you know, citizen, whilst Tyler was this extremely pretentious foodie person. And we've learned in the second half that Margot, or Erin is her real name, and Margot is just the name that she uses as an escort. She was paid by Tyler to go to this dinner with him because he was supposed to go with his girlfriend, but she broke up with him before that, and he knew that he would need a date in order to get there. So, you know, that was the thing. And it was explained quite well. It was a little bit exposition heavy, the explanation, where like Tyler had to like tell the chef why she was there, because he was always very curious why she was there, because he didn't expect her there. He expected his girlfriend to be there. But it was a little bit exposition heavy because he just like basically said why she's there. We also learned that Tyler actually received an invitation where it stated that everybody would die at the end of the evening. I'm not sure why that was included in the movie. It did sort of like make it sort of like separated the whatever relationship, or it wasn't really a relationship, but it put essentially Erin at odds with Tyler, because now he knew that she was going to die as well as everybody else there. But other than that, I'm not sure what was the purpose of him knowing. Like, we knew that he was fanatical about food and about meeting Chef Slovak, and I guess he didn't even mind dying for that. But I mean, it just introduced this like hard to believe thing. For what purpose? I don't know. Not sure about that one. But he was promptly punished for him being a pretentious ass that doomed an innocent escort to die by the chef telling him, okay, well, now you know you are, you know, so sort of pretending. The chef Slovak pretended that he was like a big you know, that you know, he sees some potential in him, and made him cook something. And he was obviously very nervous and completely fucked up some kind of lamb, and that was actually introduced again. That's where the black comedy comes from, I guess. It was actually introduced with these titles that have been going on through the entire movie, and the chorus was called Tyler's Bullshit, and it essentially said a complete mess of undercooked vegetables with undercooked lamb, or something like that. And that was then tasted by Chef, who whispered something to Tyler, and he promptly hung himself. And that was the end of Tyler. Now, we learned before from like one of Chef's dialogues that he was there to sort of like free himself. Like the reason why he's doing this final menu was because he lost kind of interest in making food, and like the investor who was also the boss of the finance bros, wanted to like change his menu or whatever. But he essentially owned the restaurant, the investor. So during one of the courses, he showed him being lowered into the sea outside and being drowned. Another thing, a cool thing that happened there. And this kind of freedom was what Erin very smartly used in order to get out alive. She was the only survivor of what happened in this entire movie, and she did that by remembering that Chef Slowik used to be a burger person, like that's how, a burger server or whatever, burger maker, and he had his own stand or whatever. So she told him that none of his food had any heart and wasn't done with love, and he protested, and she said, well, I just didn't feel it there. Could you make me a cheeseburger? And he did make a proper cheeseburger. She ate it, she loved it, and he was happy for the moment of making the cheeseburger and her appreciating it, and that's why he let her go. So that was cool about the movie. I'm glad that we got the survivor. I was a bit worried there that when he was cooking the cheeseburger and he actually started smiling and it was like a big moment, I was a bit worried that the movie would just like make him change his mind and everybody would just be let out, which would be pretty fucking cringe. Luckily, that didn't quite happen. But yeah, she was essentially let out because of that, which was cool. The thing that I didn't like the most about the movie is a pretty tiny thing to be exact, but it's like a very weird insistence on putting a fight scene in it. So when Erin went to fetch like a barrel because she was being tested by the Chef Slovak, she was told to like bring a barrel and like into the kitchen for like one of the courses, and then this was essentially a test. And she broke into his house, and that's where she saw the pictures and radioed for help. But she was confronted by like the maitre d'. Her name was Elsa, actually, and she was very angry that it appeared to her that she was there to replace him, and attacked her with a knife. Attacked Erin with a knife. And Erin managed to expertly dodge the knife hits. One of them hit her in the arm like that, but other than that, she actually crawled over the table and then like jumped back and like under the knife and like dodged like a professional fighter would have struggled to dodge, in my opinion. And she is not battle trained as far as the movie revealed to us. So that was just like out of nowhere actual action scene of an action movie that I did not understand the purpose of or the need for, other than maybe keeping audiences that don't really care about writing or characters or anything of any depth in a movie to keep them entertained, which I felt was a bit of a shallow move on the movie's part. But I mean, that was there. I don't know why, to be honest. But yeah, just to tie it off, by the way, when I said that she called for help, there was actually a Coast Guard that appeared, and that was another very cool scene, where the Coast Guard appeared, and the chef told everybody in the restaurant, because they already knew that they were about to die, listen, you're going to die either way. You can either take this Coast Guard with you, or you can, or you don't have to. Like, an innocent man will die if you tell him anything. Everybody will die. Which, for me seemed far-fetched, because surely they will just, call out to him. The Coast Guard appeared and nobody said a word, but then he recognized one of the actors and made him like give him an autograph. The actor gave him an autograph, and on it said "Help us." So he turned around, pulled out his gun, and it seemed like what's going to happen here. Like they know, and also whenever some kind of like police officer, Coast Guard or anything like that is going somewhere to investigate, they have to radio it in. So even if the Coast Guard would get killed, they would dispatch reinforcements in some time, So I was like wondering like what's going to happen there. But then it's revealed that the Coast Guard is actually an employee of the chef, and this was just like a whole test. And that was a very, very cool scene indeed. Especially like what I enjoyed the most in this scene was sort of what I enjoyed the most in the entire movie, and that was how they managed to portray the different groups, or not the different groups, but like the people overall. You know, how they reacted in like different ways. Like everybody stayed silent. Like the actor just like wrote "help us," but everybody was silent and just like looking at him, kind of scared, but didn't like move a muscle. But then when he brandished his weapon, all of them just broke down and like pleaded with him, please help, you know, we're hostages, and started pointing at the chef and everything. And it was a very cool sort of scene where this I don't know if it was like Stockholm syndrome or just like actual abject fear, or again group psychology, but it was very well portrayed where people where they needed that little push of him brandishing his firearm or taking out his gun. I don't know why I said it so fancy. It's probably the clothes, and pointing it, like that was enough of a trigger for all the people to essentially say, please help us, you know, we're fucked. Which was interesting, even though it turned out that he wasn't a real Coast Guard. But yeah, going back to how it ended, and Erin like having escaped, and everybody else dying in like a blaze, where, you know, the whole room was essentially made to look like a dish of s'mores. And the chef saying essentially, we're going to end this with like my take on s'mores, which is like the assault on the palate, the worst possible food a person can ingest, and blah blah blah. And they, you know, put like s'mores on everybody, and then they just started the fire, and everybody died, except for Erin, who escaped on a boat. They did stick the landing, in my opinion. A cool survival horror second half. That's how I would describe it. Second half, kind of cool survival horror. Yeah, pretty cool survival horror. The first half, actual great movie. You know, it did. I think it was let down a little bit by the second half, but it didn't. So, for example, like Seven Psychopaths, I think the second half of Seven Psychopaths completely demolished that movie. Like, to me, after that, I was like, you know, fuck this movie. But here, the second half didn't like drop the ball too hard, but it just made a great movie into just slightly above average for me. But yeah, in conclusion, as I said before, I've been to many fine dining events and restaurants, and the kind of mystery and unusual factor and nature of the food and everything that's going on that's introduced in the movie is spot on. Even the usual guests are very well characterized. This is very much the kind of pretentiousness that I've come across with the people that I've come across in these restaurants or these places. From casuals that find everything kind of weird and stupid, to insufferable pretentious know-it-alls, from high society to rude people that got there purely through making loads of cash and not having any culture or any manners at all, and essentially finance bros, essentially. Basically all the groups that you would find in a fine dining restaurant, very well characterized, very well shown. No like exposition dumps or anything like that. Everything done through conversation. So again, writing top notch. And yeah, watching the movie and digesting the writing, editing, and acting really felt like, especially in the first half, sort of like an exclusive menu that you would be tasting, which was interesting to me for sure, and that's also something that motivated me in dressing up as one of those pretentious idiots. But yeah, as an overall experience, the first half was definitely better, in my opinion. The tension, gradual character dynamics, and everything was awesome once it turned into survival horror. It went down a couple of notches, I'll be honest, but it's still pretty good, and it maintained the focus of the menu. Although now it was a bit fractured because it wasn't just the menu and, you know, some kind of conversations going on and some kind of dynamics shifting, but also there was like people, you know, trying to run, people trying to call for help, fighting, and all of that. You know, that it turned into a little bit of a chaos. But yeah, it's very highly, very positively reviewed film. It has 89% on Rotten Tomatoes, judging from 305 critics' reviews that are positive, an average of 7.5. Yeah, I mean, to me, I think I would give it a 7, honestly. 7 maybe 7.5. Actually, no. 7 I actually agree with 7.5. I'm not gonna lie. 7.5 seems absolutely fair. If the entire movie was done like the first half, I might give it like an 8 or a 9. Definitely like that. Survival horror felt to me like going back to sort of like average movie making. With, of course, great writing overall. And it did keep like the menu and everything, but it was just a bit fractured, a bit chaotic. But yeah, that is my opinion on the movie. If you have any questions, discussions, let's have it. Spud, what do you want to talk about? Anything else?